But I want to start here with an article that our friend Sarah Bedinger put together at Predominantly Orange. The reasons why you should have faith in Drew Lock. Now, I feel like oftentimes with articles or any kind of conversation about Drew Lock and whether you should have faith or whether you should, some people are moving on. A lot of this comes down to some eye test stuff. Some people will use some stats, they'll throw some things around. But I mean, if you look at, what he's at right now, of the 33 qualified quarterbacks, he's dead last in completion percentage. So it's not necessarily, and his QBR is one of the lowest, PFF grade, all that stuff. So some people will point to that. But then you could also point to over the last 10 games that he has played the entirety of the game, the Broncos are averaging 27 points per game. The offense is significantly on an uptick, and especially when you factor in what the Broncos offense has on average been putting out over the last several years. We're talking like 17, 18 points per game. There's a significant uptick. Also, in the games that he's completed, he's 6-4. QB wins are kind of a borderline stat anyways. But before we get into the bullet points of this thing, I mean, right now, I think that you have to just continue to encourage patience. Like, one way or the other, he's going to play the remainder of the 8 games.
Right.
That's not going to change anything.
Right.
And we can all just sort of sit back and enjoy the ride.
And we should. And that's part of it. I think that's the part I've been preaching from the get-go is whatever you think of Drew Lock right now, he's getting the rest of the season to prove it. So why are you writing a book review after the first chapter? You wouldn't get up after, out of a movie after 15 minutes, walk out, tell everybody how great it is, even though you didn't see the last, 75% of it. It's just stupid. It's silly. And a lot of it stems from the day-to-day nature of sports talk radio. Hot take radio guy thinks he's got to have content today, so he gins up some fake controversy about how we got to move on from the quarterback. He's not good enough, or all this kind of stuff, or fire the coach. Whatever clickbait they can put out there to get you to react. It's stupid. Of course it's stupid, but they're trying to, in fairness, they're trying to generate content to get interaction from you. I'm just thankful that we don't have to beg for listeners on this show. So we can actually just be honest with you about it and be like, look, this is going to be a season-long thing. And if you guys want to talk about how that performance was, we're happy to do that. But we're not going to sit here and make up some nonsense about the quarterback needs to be benched and they need to go out and trade for something that they're not going to trade for, or that they need to fire the coach midseason, because that's totally going to happen. Do I think that Tom McMahon could stand to be better and is going to be looked at this offseason? Absolutely. Do I think that Drew Lock is still on a long-term audition and has not yet seized the job? You're damn right.
Let's go ahead and go through some of the bullet points here. Okay, so the first one here, he says Drew Lock is good enough to deserve time. And what he points to, first of all, is his time in Missouri, where he set, at that time, an SEC record 44 touchdown passes. Mm-hmm. Again, that's impressive. You're playing the SEC. We're talking about big boy football. We're talking about some of the guys that go in the top of the draft. He had, at one time, the SEC record, who eventually was eclipsed by Joe Burrow when he got to 60.
Right. And to be fair to Drew Lock, it wasn't exactly like he was surrounded by a ton of NFL talent at what is basically a bottom feeder school in the SEC. If you look at the bottom tier schools over there, that's one of them.
In this part, the bullet point here, he points out how Lock has 3 games with 3 total touchdowns in his first 11 starts. And he's including the game against the Steelers, even though, again, he only played a handful of snaps. He points to Jay Cutler, who at one time here in Denver was considered the franchise guy until Josh McDaniels got here and summarily moved him on. But it took Cutler 11 games just to get to his first 3-touchdown performance. His second one didn't come until his 18th start, and his third one came in the 23rd start. So just an acknowledgement there that, yes, there are some things mechanically you'd like to see better. And of course, with Jay Cutler, that was, a lot of people looked at him and said, this is the bona fide, no question guy. Drew Lock's already kind of ahead of the curve in some of those categories.
Yes. Now, keep in mind that team at that point in time liked to run the ball a lot. There were a lot more rushing touchdowns that were done because that was the nature of the offense at the time. But there is a point to that. It was simply a lot longer for Jay Cutler to get there. The team, again, they didn't throw as much as they do now, so a little bit different. But there are something to be said for that.
Yeah, and Cutler was 5-6 in his first 11 starts.
That's where I go, because you had a team that was winning under Jake Plummer. You had a team that was capable under Jake Plummer. You have the opposite scenario here. A team that was losing under Jeff Driscoll. Now, they won a game with Brett Rippon, but it was the Jets, so a little bit of nuance, and it took some magic to make that happen, actually, after the interceptions. But to be fair, you have a team that's losing when Brandon Allen, Joe Flacco, and Jeff Driscoll play. But they win when Drew Lock plays. So what does that tell you? That tells you that whatever you're seeing out there, for some reason, that quarterback gives you a better chance to win, period. And he does. Now, have there been problems? Absolutely. But they find ways to win games when he's out there, and they didn't do that when Joe Flacco was out there. They didn't do it when Brandon Allen was out there. And they didn't do it when Jeff Driscoll was out there. So
his next point here, he says, the grass is green where you water it. So this is more about the investment in Drew Lock, investing in the coaching that's going to be around him, investing in the amount of players and time in him. He points to how quarterbacks that we've followed for years, but even just more specifically, how many times that they've had changes at offensive coordinator, changes with head coaching. And you're not really investing in the development of any player. I mean, look at Garrett Bowles, is a perfect example, and he cites him here. He's like, look at Garrett Bowles. He's having his best year as a pro. And he credits almost immediately every single time is the first time he's had any consistency with offensive line coach. Right. Mike Munchak is the first time he's had back-to-back years with the same offensive line coach. And so you take Drew Lock, who had 3 different offensive coordinators in Missouri, and he had some up and down play with each one. I mean, like he obviously finished pretty strong, but in the end, you know, we saw moments there where he seemed to play better with others. So in his first 2 years here as a pro with the Broncos, he's already had an offensive coordinator change. This is about investment in him, which means you really kind of want to see this one play out and see it play through, because if Pat Shurmur is replaced or decide to go in a new direction, well, I mean, I think you're kind of putting him back to an early peg once again.
Yes, and that really is it. If you go back and you look, and I've talked about Derek Carr a little bit, you know, you go back and look at Derek Carr and you know, and how he has developed in John Gruden's offense. And once he got the consistency of having been there a couple of years and learned to master the offense, he was able to be quite a bit better. He's a much better quarterback this year. And he's playing at a very high level this year because of that. He's finally got mastery of the offense. It takes a while to learn these West Coast offenses. You know, it does. There's a lot of terminology involved. There's a lot pro concept stuff involved in it. And guys who didn't have to do that in college struggle sometimes. It takes them a while to get there. It took Derek Carr a while to get there. He's coming out of that offense there at Fresno State. He wasn't prepared for it. So with Drew Lock, it's the same thing. And I love that analogy, grass is green where you water. That's absolutely what it is. Keep coaching them up. Keep watering that grass. Try to nurture it and see what you got. You can't make a judgment after a few game sample size. If we did every quarterback after 10 games, Peyton Manning probably wouldn't have lasted very long in this league. He led set the rookie interception record. Alex Smith wouldn't have ever had a career in this league. RG3 would be a 10-time MVP. And so, 10 games is just not long. Vince Young would be these guys, it takes a while to get that stuff down. You got to kind of figure it out. Let's pump the brakes just a little bit and sit back and enjoy the ride. And if he's not the guy, then they're going to be in a position to draft the guy at the end of the year.